Edward Harlow had everything, everything money could buy, everything power could build, everything success could promise. But every single night, at exactly midnight, he heard footsteps, small ones, like a child walking down a long hallway. And every single night, Edward Harlow pulled his blanket tighter and pretended he could not hear them. He was 71 years old. He lived alone in a mansion with 14 rooms. 14 rooms, and not one person to share them with. The house had marble floors, tall ceilings, paintings that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, a kitchen that was always fully stocked, by a chef who came and left without ever being seen, a garden so perfectly kept it looked like a photograph. Everything in that house was perfect. Everything was expensive. Everything was empty. Edward had not always been rich. He grew up with very little: a small apartment, a tired mother, a father who left early. He learned one thing from that childhood: poverty was a kind of prison, and he was never going back. So he worked, not like normal people work, like a man running from something, morning to night, 7 days a week, every year for 40 years. He built companies. He made deals. He collected money the way some people collect memories. And it worked. By the time he was 40, he was wealthy. By the time he was 50, he was powerful. By the time he was 60, he was one of the richest men in the country. He had everything, except one thing. Her name was Diana. He had loved her once, a long time ago, when he was young and still believed that love was something you could hold on to, while also holding on to everything else. He was wrong. Diana was gentle and warm and real. She wanted a simple life, a small home, a family, a man who came home for dinner. Edward wanted something different. He wanted more, always more. They had a son together. His name was Thomas. Thomas had Diana's eyes, quiet and warm and full of something Edward never quite understood. Thomas was 4 years old when Edward left, not dramatically, not with a fight or a scene. He just stopped coming home. First, it was late nights at the office. Then it was business trips. Then it was months between visits. Then it was nothing. A birthday card once a year. A check in the mail. The kind of presence that is really just an absence wearing a disguise. Diana never asked for anything. She raised Thomas alone, quietly, carefully, with everything she had. And Edward built his empire and told himself that the check in the mail was enough, that money was a kind of love, that providing was the same as being present. He was wrong about that too. Thomas stopped cashing the checks when he was 16. Edward found out from his accountant. He told himself the boy was stubborn, ungrateful. He did not let himself think about what it really meant, that his son had decided he would rather have nothing from his father than keep pretending that money meant something. Years passed, more years. Edward heard through distant connections that Thomas had grown up well, had become a teacher, lived simply, had children of his own, a family, a real one. The kind Edward had walked away from. He told himself he was glad. He told himself it had all worked out. He told himself many things in those years. Most of them were lies he needed to keep living comfortably. Then Thomas got sick. Edward found out too late. By the time he knew, Thomas was already gone, 43 years old, a teacher, a father, a husband. Gone. And Edward sat in his 14-room mansion, alone. with his marble floors and his expensive paintings, and felt something he had spent 40 years running from. Nothing. Not sadness exactly. Something worse than sadness. Emptiness. The specific kind of emptiness that comes from realizing you had something real, and you chose something else instead. And now the real thing is gone, and the something else is just a house. The footsteps started 3 weeks after Thomas died. The first night Edward heard them, he sat straight up in bed. Small footsteps, light and quick, like a child running down the hallway outside his bedroom door. He got up, opened the door. The hallway was empty, dark and long and perfectly silent. He told himself it was the house settling. Old buildings make sounds. He went back to bed. The next night, the footsteps came again. Same time, same hallway, same small light sound. He got up again, checked again. Nothing. The third night, he did not get up. He just lay there, listening, and something happened that frightened him more than the sound itself. He recognized them. The footsteps. He knew their weight, their rhythm, the specific way they moved, because he had heard them before. A long time ago. In a small apartment where a 4-year-old boy used to run down the hallway to greet him when he came home. Before he stopped coming home, Edward did not tell anyone about the footsteps. Who would he tell? He had no friends, not real ones. He had associates, business contacts, people who called when they needed something. Nobody who would sit with him at midnight and listen to a story about footsteps. So he sat with it alone, night after night. The footsteps came every night without fail, always at midnight, always in the hallway outside his door, always stopping just outside, never coming in. One night, Edward got up, and instead of opening the door, he sat on the floor beside it, back against the wood, knees up, like a child himself. And he talked. For the first time in years, he talked to someone who was not there. He said, "I know what I did." The house was quiet. "I know there is no excuse for it." Silence. "I told myself it was for the best, that you were better off without a father who was never really present, that the money meant something." He stopped. "It did not mean anything. I know that now." He pressed his back harder against the door. "I was afraid," he said quietly. "Not of you, not of your mother, of myself, of being someone's father and failing, of being present and still not being enough. So I chose to not be present at all. And I told myself that was a decision, but it was just fear wearing the clothes of ambition." The house was completely still. "I am sorry, Thomas." 3 words. The most expensive words he had ever spoken, because they cost him something no amount of money could replace. His pride, his carefully built story about himself. The version of Edward Harlow who had made all the right choices. The footsteps did not stop after that night. But something changed. They no longer frightened him. They felt different. Less like an accusation, more like a presence, like something that simply needed to be acknowledged, to be heard. Even now, even this late, Edward made one phone call the next morning to Thomas's wife. Her name was Helen. She did not hang up. He had expected her to. She listened quietly while he stumbled through the worst apology of his life. When he finished, she said, "Thomas never hated you." Edward could not speak. "He was sad about you," she said. "There is a difference. Hate needs energy. Sadness just sits with you quietly. He thought about the footsteps, quiet, patient, sitting just outside the door. He talked about you sometimes, Helen continued. Not often, but sometimes. He used to say, "My father was a man who was running so fast from nothing that he ran straight past everything." Edward closed his eyes. "He has 3 children," Helen said. "Your grandchildren. They do not know you exist. That is something only you can decide to change." She gave him a time. Sunday dinner, simple food, small house, loud children. Everything Edward had spent his life avoiding. Everything he had spent his nights missing without knowing it. Money is not the opposite of poverty. Peace is, and peace cannot be bought. It cannot be built. It cannot be earned through long hours and big deals and 14-room mansions. Peace comes from one thing only: living honestly, loving the people in front of you, choosing presence over achievement, again and again and again. Edward Harlow had everything, and he had nothing, until the night he sat on the floor of his empty mansion and finally told the truth. It is never too late to tell the truth, but it is always better to tell it early, before the hallways go quiet, before the footsteps are the only company you have left. Now, it is your turn. Is there someone in your life you have been too busy for, too proud to call, too afraid to face? Do not wait for midnight footsteps to remind you. Pick up the phone today. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it.